Hi, my name is Amy Nato, and this is the Intelligent Minds podcast. Following my 13-year career as a classroom teacher, I decided to create a podcast that would interview experts and enthusiasts about a variety of universal and engaging topics. In today's episode, I'll speak with veterans of the United States Armed Forces about their time serving our country. We begin today with Jay Gibson, Quartermaster First Class of the U.S. Navy Reserve, serving in 1984 through 1986 on active duty and 1987 through 1992 in active duty. Jay worked in the Naval Education Training Command in Newport, Rhode Island. Good morning, Jay.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, Jay, I've asked you here today to speak with us about what life lessons you learned from your time in the service.
What a great question. I did a whole lot of growing up, turning from I was just a pretty provincial, upper middle class kid who didn't know anything about people or the world around me. And after being in the Navy, I did a lot of growing up, and I was able to really broaden up and develop. I went in after getting out of college. And it's kind of ironic. I went in for officer candidate school and went through a lot of that training and didn't make it. So I rolled down into the ranks. And fortunately, my education and the training I had received let me land in a pretty good job. And my job was to help train naval reservists in navigating. So I got to go out on a couple of different ships. I lived with different guys. And the sort of thing I learned in the Navy that was so amazing is to rely on myself and to be able to be a person that other guys could rely on. That's the big life lesson I think I really took away, that if you're going to do something, you want to do it well. If you're going to be a shipmate, you've got to be reliable, you have to be somebody who can be trusted, and you have to trust other people, and you have to be ready for them. The training they give you is really invaluable. It helps build confidence. I got to do some incredible things. Firefighting school was pretty amazing. I learned how to do the right thing, sensible thing when I was scared out of my wits. And that's what it really helped grow me up with, to get to know people as people, to look beyond stereotypes, color, race. And I was very lucky for that. Very lucky indeed.
Do you have any stories you'd like to share about the other sailors that you grew up with in the service?
Sure, I could tell you about a couple. I wasn't assigned to a specific ship. I was assigned to a command. So my shipmates were great folks. We were used to packing up and going out for a few weeks at a time on different cruises. Well, we would go with the reservists on these cruises from port to port to port down to training areas and sail around training in the Caribbean and then return home. So there was a chance, it was really nice duty because you got off the boat fairly regularly, and you were able to then steam out in the ocean and go. So a couple of times, hanging out with these guys, it seemed perfectly normal to me. Once we'd work together in the office, and we'd work together at the training center, and then we'd go out to sea together. These were my brothers. These were my shipmates, and we would integrate ourselves in on the ship we were visiting, and we had to start doing our jobs to fit into that ship's organization. So you kind of learn to do an extra good job if you could. You had to prove yourself to the folks who really owned that ship. We were the reserve training guys, and then you had to prove yourself to the reservists. So hanging out a couple of times we were in bars. There's always going to be some yammerhead who wants to pick a fight with a sailor, especially a black sailor, because we're in the southern United States. And, you thought nothing of it. He's your shipmate. I didn't care if they were black or white. That guy's my mate. So we would do our best to get out of there and not get in trouble and not get hurt, which are two really good rules in a fight like that. And, they were there for me. So that was kind of a new thing to learn, being from Florida and, having had the upper middle class sort of college experience and all that. The initial question I remember was, what kind of life lessons did you take from it? I think the life lesson to be a self-reliant grown up and be able to take care of yourself and take care of others and do a job, that was just a huge part of what the military gave me. I also learned how to teach. That was kind of cool since I've been a teacher for 30 years. And I was looking back at some things, and the military, the Navy has changed so much since I was in. Let's face it, that's 30 plus years ago. Since the War on Terror, they've changed the entire way quartermasters do things. My rate, which is quartermaster, we didn't do all the signalman's jobs that they do now too, but we did have a lot of the same things. We had to take care of navigation. We updated charts. We had a really cool, really fun, important job, and being relied upon to do that job well, and then discovering you can do something well, and you get, raised up for it, and you get respected for it. The Navy was the first place where I really earned real people's respect. That was cool. So there's a life lesson learned. How's that sound?
Especially as a young person, it's hard to earn respect as a young person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was in 20s at this point, and coming right out of college anyway. I had seen all my classmates just, can't really get anything because I'm so young. Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but at least when I came back out of the military and I'm at loose ends, when I started telling Pete Benedict, the headmaster at St. Ed's, what my experience had been like and what I was doing, he immediately said, well, if you've been teaching, if you'd like to teach, I could use somebody who can do what you can do. You can do this. And he mentored me, got me in. He sort of created an internship program because he knew he had some other promising former grads coming through. And it really, it gave me what I needed to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. But the experiences, and something else you get, a life experience you can't have anywhere else. Being at sea is just extraordinary. Imagine, if you will, when you're at sea, it's a clear night, and you have nothing but stars, and you can really see stars out at sea. And they're just all the way from the horizon over your head back. Or incredible sunrises and sunsets. For recreation, they'll stop the ship in the middle of the ocean, and it's swim call. So you're out there swimming, and it's really amazing swimming when there's like 20 miles of nothing between you and the ocean floor. You really get an idea how big and deep it is. And of course, you're going up there, you're finished swimming, so you go over and you relieve the guy, and you take the rifle from him, and you drink water and pull that rifle, and you make sure if you see a shark, you're going to shoot that shark. That's what you do at swim call. So, it's not on.
Wow.
So, but there you go. That's another part of it. You're watching out for your mates. When that whole ship, when everybody in the ship is asleep, and you're with the duty watch that's driving the boat, and all those people are sleeping sound. They're good. They know the guys on watch have got them. The engineering watch is on. The underway watch is ready. It was just really cool doing that. It was growing up, but and a really good environment. Always very encouraging, that at least Navy was back then. And I imagine it still is now, It was good. I grew up.
Do you have any advice for young people that might consider enlisting or becoming an officer?
Become an officer if you can. Go through college. It's interesting, I didn't have the chops or a lot of math, and yet I was able, I learned a lot of that as I was going. I would say it's a great way. Go in with the expectation that the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. It really can be a positive thing. They need people who really want to be there. So I would suggest that, you talk to recruiters, then you talk to vets, you choose your service with some care. And I think, it's just going to be a great experience and a great adventure. One of the things the Navy will keep its promise about, you'll see the world. When you're in, you get, I think now I read somewhere that 36 months at sea followed by 36 months ashore. And so, you can plan on being out there. Some people find the deployments really hard to take because they're away from the world and loved ones. I always knew I would get out someday. And it was just a great adventure. It was like going away to school and going away to camp,
Oh, sure.
So, once you've got all the training and you discover what you have in you to do, it's really great. I have to say, if I hadn't been lucky enough to have a parent who could pay my way through college, the military is the way I would do it. The educational benefits are real. Most of the non-coms you meet in any branch of service probably got college paid for by the military just so they can do their jobs. Sailors, soldiers, they got to be smart, motivated people. So you're going to be with some of the greatest people in the world because they want to be there. So, I would say read up carefully, choose your service carefully, which branch you go into. I've always liked boats, and I've been around boats since I was a little kid. So, there wasn't too much about that environment that was going to be alien to me. If you grew up in the country and you're really into hunting and hiking and all that, you don't want to be in the Navy. Not as much as you probably enjoy the Army or the Marines. So, it sounds basic, but think about what you like to do and think about going with the service where you'll be around people who like doing that. I like hanging out in boats. I was, nothing else. We like boats, so we did the boat thing.
Right.
I guess that sounds just pretty basic and dumb, but it's, you got to do some research. But the experience was a very positive one for me. I was okay with authority. I'm okay with, the guys in charge. I'll take the order. If you don't think you can handle that, don't get in the military. You might find it a frustrating experience. Understand, you're going to have superiors, you're going to have bosses anywhere you go, and you're going to really admire some, and you're going to kind of grit your teeth and deal with some. That's true in the military too. So, if you're not into being part of an organization, part of a bigger structure, you might want to rethink it. Otherwise, it's a good time.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Jay. Thank you for your service. I truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good luck with your project. I'm very grateful to participate. Thank you for having me.
Our second guest is Brigadier General Kris Campbell, who joined the Army in 1972 prior to her junior year of college under the Army Student Nurse Program and served from 1972 to 2005 in several hospital and headquarters units. She served with the 45th Station Hospital during Desert Storm, where she went to Germany to the Landstuhl Army Medical Center, and also with the 396th Combat Support Hospital in Bosnia. She served as the commander of the U.S. hospital in Bosnia, the first nurse and first female to command a hospital in a hazardous duty area. She's earned numerous awards, the highest of which is the Distinguished Service Medal. Hi, Kris. How are you?
Hey, Amy.
Hey, well, I want to thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm delighted that you are participating.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So my question today is, what life lessons did you learn during your time in the service?
Well, I think you learn, I would say that the biggest things are things that you learn about yourself. So, for me, I learned that I could do things I never thought I could do, because all of the training that you do in the military is to push your boundaries and show you that you have pretty limitless capabilities, which we don't all recognize in ourselves, nor do we always push ourselves to the points where it's painful to learn those lessons. People get that sometimes from an illness or a horrible injury or a big life event, but in the military, they kind of build it into you. So you do military, the training exercises, and for me, being in a hospital unit for most of my career, we would have field exercises where we would get mass casualty training. So how do we process all of those patients, and how do we get good at coordinating activities and communication and all the kinds of things that you do when chaos is what you're dealing with. And as soon as you start getting a grasp on what you're doing and you start humming and you feel like you know how to do this and this exercise is going really well, they create more chaos for you, because it's all about learning how to regroup. And it's all about learning how to find some order and some in your leadership capabilities, and how you work with people and building your team when things get chaotic. So they keep pushing you past your comfort zone on a regular basis. That's what it's designed for. That took me actually quite a few years to figure out. I thought I was really kind of learning military things about how to handle mass casualties. That is a huge piece of it, but it's also teaching you that you can regroup and you can rebuild your team and do things you never thought you could do under horrible conditions and still do well. So finding out that you really can do pretty much anything you need to do is a wonderful thing to find out about yourself.
For sure.
And it's hard.
Are there any specific stories that you remember that taught you something that translated to civilian life?
It's your life. Your military life isn't really all that big different than your civilian life. I don't think you're still the same person. You have the same values. You still have the same ways of thinking and doing things. I think the military pushes you a little bit. I think so in that regard, you've learned more about yourself, and you can take that to your civilian life. I think another thing that I really value about my time in service that I learned to really appreciate over time, I joined the Army to travel. That was my motivation. It was to travel, and it also paid for school. But I was from a small town in Wisconsin, and I wanted to see the world. But I really learned over time that working for a mission-oriented organization is so valuable because it makes a difference what you do. Taking care of family, taking care of soldiers, taking care of injured people. And I worked in the nursery for a while, taking care of babies. All of that was related to taking care of soldiers and their families. And that mission of service is very fulfilling and very satisfying. So I take that, I worked at nonprofit after I left the military. I've always worked at nonprofits. When I taught, schools are nonprofit, and then I worked for a nonprofit, the Oregon Center for Nursing. It's that focus on a mission that makes me feel really good about the work that I do.
Is there any advice you might give to a young recruit, somebody enlisting in the service?
Well, I would say just go for it and learn what you can, and surround yourself with the people, because there's wonderful people and there's not so wonderful people everywhere. Surround yourself with people that help bring out the best in you. If you are going to be in the service, you're going to travel, so take advantage of all the opportunities of learning about different parts of the world, different parts of the country, because there's huge differences, and embrace learning. The military has their different levels of leadership training for enlisted soldiers and for officers. Do all of that, and then continue your civilian education, because those will help you no matter what it is that you do. Because, I believe in being a lifelong learner. So
as do
I would say take advantage of it, because there's a lot of those opportunities in the military.
Thank you.
It's a nice equalizer, too. You get paid according to rank, which kind of equalizes pay for men and women. So it's still a male-dominated culture, but still, there's equality in some ways there.
Do you have anything else you want to share, maybe about that equality or what it was like to be female in the service at all?
I will have to say that my experience of being a female in the service is a little different than most what people think of, because I was in hospitals, which are hugely female because the biggest workforce in any hospital is their nurses. So, and nurses are predominantly female, though the military does have more male nurses than I believe the civilian population has. So, so I didn't have the kind of experience that females in many other kinds of units have. That said, I will say when I was in Bosnia, I was the only female commander of all of the commanders at the time that I was there.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, and there weren't that many, because that was 97 to 98. There weren't that many females in. There were captains and majors and a lieutenant colonel now and then. I never saw another colonel. And there were very few of the other ranks. And in fact, one time when I went to it was a briefing that they had every night. It was called Battle Update Brief. It was a whole room full of people. Now there was a changeover occurring, so I think I counted like 90 people in the room, but that was an inflated number because it was a changeover, so there were redundant people. It was the people from the hospital before us, and all the other units were there also. So say normally 40 or 50 people at one of those briefings. I was the only female except for 2 lieutenants that were briefing.
Wow.
So I was noticeable in that situation, being, and that was just one meeting, but being a female commander in a deployment button, I was noticeable. So you have to be a good role model because people pay attention.
Yes.
It was okay though. It was a great experience, and I'm thankful that I got to do that. But you do, everything is scrutinized when you're in a role like that.
Were you able to mentor any other women soldiers underneath you?
I would say that several female officers from other units came to talk to me about issues. We had a number of females in our unit there, so kind of my job to watch out for everyone, make sure everyone's okay, and that they're getting the training that they need, that we all get the training that we need. So, yeah, I did talk with other females who were not in female heavy units where they had a lot of females. A lot of them were one of a whole group of people, and that's hard.
I can
imagine.
That's
really hard because the other thing is people don't necessarily want you there or want you to do well. So you have to be better, do better, and lead by example.
Thank you so much for speaking with me about all of these topics. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate yours too.
Our next guest is Staff Sergeant Lenny Adams, who enlisted in the Connecticut Army National Guard in the year 2000. Staff Sergeant Adams has been awarded the Army Commendation Medal and the Good Conduct Medal for his service, which included a deployment to Camp Virginia in Kuwait during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He will finish his 20th year of service this winter. Thank you for speaking with me today, Lenny.
Hey, friend.
Hey. The question of the day is, what life lessons did you learn from your military service?
I went into the military not really knowing much about it outside of what my father taught me. And I was a very loud person who was scared of every word that came out of their mouth. So the Army kind of taught me that I had value, I had form, I had function, and that I had the ability to make people listen, which was kind of cool. But also, I got a lot of discipline out of it. I was not somebody who would have been successful right out of high school. I wouldn't have done well in college right out of high school. So the military gave me a lot of that, which is kind of cool.
Do you want to share any stories from your time in the service where you learned a crucial lesson, or you watched somebody else learn a crucial lesson, maybe?
Well, I think I learned a pretty crucial lesson, and someone else did at the same time, for completely different reasons, actually. So most stories in the military are very positive, and my military service was great. A lot of my military service really wasn't great. When I deployed, I actually had a commander who told me that I was expendable.
Wow.
Yeah, and the worst part is he didn't even say it to my face. He said it to other people. We had a really horrible commander. He was very young. He was very arrogant. And he had never been a commander before, which is a thing. Everybody's got to learn. But he was walking around one night, and a senior leader was all excited about, convoying was the big thing at the time. Everybody drove everywhere. You didn't fly into Iraq. You had to land in Kuwait and then drive from Kuwait into Iraq. And this senior leader was, I bought this sling, and it's going to help me when we're on convoys because I'll be able to do everything. And the commander said to him and to others in the room, why would I send you when I could send somebody expendable like? And then proceeded to list 4 different soldiers, all of whom had volunteered for his deployment. And that was the beginning of that. By the end of our deployment, we used to joke around every unit's got a motto, like, lead the way, or, this will defend, all that kind of stuff. Ours was not all bullets come from the front.
Ooh.
Yeah. Our unit t-shirts said, got 4856, which is it's actually, for military people, they'll get that. A 4856 is a counseling statement, and they don't usually write them because you're so awesome. Even though they're supposed to be able to say those things, they're usually because you got in trouble for something.
Mm-hmm.
So the commander got really mad, and I still have that t-shirt to this day. It's my most prized possession after my daughter. Yeah.
I don't know how to react appropriately to that.
It's terrible. It was absolutely terrible, but it taught me that, just because someone is in a position of power or a position of authority does not mean they know what they're doing. And that's really helped me with teaching, because we go into jobs like, you have a principal who's the lead teacher. They're the lead instructor in that building who's supposed to know how to handle parents and work with people and help teachers and whatnot. And so many times you see administrators who fall because they've forgotten what it was like to be the person doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these leaders in the military, some of them come in without any military experience prior to being an officer. And so I learned very quickly that you correct them when they do something wrong. And it doesn't matter what your rank is. You correct them when they're doing something wrong, because 9 times out of 10, they don't know and they're too afraid to ask.
It's a good life lesson.
Oh, a very good life lesson. I hope he learned his lesson. He ended up being transferred out of the National Guard and being sent somewhere else. So that was his life lesson. The entire unit banded together, and I don't want to say mutiny, but we finished our deployment, and then when people asked us how did it go, we told them the truth. And it's very brave to tell the truth when you think no one's going to believe you, and then everybody sits there and goes, "Oh my God, that's really what happened?" Or like, "Yeah, that's really what happened."
Mm-hmm.
So it was either a really great conspiracy, which it wasn't, or it was the actual truth. It scared a lot of people that he had done things that we were telling him. So it's a big life lesson. You have to stand up to people even when they're in authority.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that's kind of painful to revisit.
I kind of laugh at it now, but it's been a good 16 years, so I've grown a lot since then.
So, you're still in, you're heading towards retirement. How do you feel about that?
I joined the military June 28, 2000, but I had a 6-month break for some time. So I'll retire in December of 2020. And with COVID, it's been kind of crazy. We've been, not drilling for a couple of months, so we have to make up some time. But I'm sitting here going, I have 6 months left.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the military more than half my life. When you think about that, that's really crazy. I'm only 37 years old. And I was supposed to do 6 years and leave. So for me, it's like, how did this happen? When did all of this happen? And I look at other people and I ask, are you going to stay or are you going to get out? And they asked me, like, well, you stayed for 20. I'm like, I wasn't supposed to be here. Please let me tell you the story. I wasn't supposed to be here. And they all laugh. And I'm like, no, really? Like, I'm like the worst soldier ever. They're like, what? I'm like, no, really? Like, I'm like the worst soldier ever. And it's always a joke because I'm not a bad soldier. I'm actually a really good soldier. I'm just not the one that they would put on the magazines. I'm not the one that does the most push-ups. I'm not the one who's the thinnest. I'm not the one who runs really fast. But I'm the really smart one that knows how to do everything. I'm the one when they need someone to go and get certified in something, they can send me because they know no matter what it is, I can learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an interesting thing. It's not what the military values intelligence, but it's second to brawn. So I'm a different kind of soldier, and I don't think anybody calls me Adams. I think everybody calls me Lenny, which is really funny. In the military, everybody's Sergeant Adams. I'm like, no, Lenny's
Lenny, yeah.
Lenny's nice.
I think you have to earn that humanity, by your leadership, and it sounds like you've done that.
Yeah, my leadership now is really good. They're really good people. They know what to expect, and they learn to find the strengths in their unit and their soldiers, and they're able to use that to the advantage of everyone, which is probably the greatest thing one can do. Like you and I were having a separate conversation earlier. Knowing what people are good at helps everybody, because then they're good at this, let them do that. Well, this person's good at something else, let them do that. Great skill for leadership. Know your assets.
Any advice for a young person thinking about joining the armed forces? I'm putting you on the spot.
Do it for the right reasons. The world is a very different place now than when I joined 20 years ago. In June of 2000, there was no war. The Twin Towers still stood. It wasn't as America as it is now. There's an honor in serving your country. Less than 1% of the population does it.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like I think the statistics are like less than 1% of the country does it. Do it because you want to serve your country, not because you want to be a hero. I think it's a different mentality. Like you don't go into something for the glory of it. You go into something because you want to be part of something bigger than yourself. At the same time, there are a lot of great advantages to joining the military. The education programs alone are fantastic. If you're someone who's interested in education, if you're looking for a job that kind of takes care of you, it can be a great experience, and it can teach you some things you never thought you'd ever be able to do. But make sure that you're doing it for you and not to make someone else happy. A lot of people do it for legacies, and that's a noble thing, but not everyone's meant to do it. And really do your research. Seriously do your research. Before you go to join a branch of the military, really read up about them, what jobs are available, what jobs you qualify for when you join them. And if you don't qualify for a job, what you can do to be able to qualify for that, because a lot of things are promised. I hate to say recruiters can be a little lax with the truth. I don't think it's necessarily intentional all the time. But
yeah, no, they signed my dad up to do one job and he ended up doing something completely different that he didn't like or sign up for. So,
and sometimes, and that happens for a multitude of reasons. And it's not always because somebody lied. Sometimes it's just that things change. It depends. If you're National Guard, you're going with a guarantee of a certain job in a certain unit. When you go active duty, it's not necessarily the same.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you start off doing something and then you don't qualify for it anymore, or they don't need it, or you really talk to your recruiters and talk about your contract before you go and sign and get board. And talk to your friends and your family, and not that you need their support or whatever, but it's nice to have the good conversations. Talk to a counselor. Talk to especially like the young kids who go into the military right out of high school. Talk to your school counselors. Really find out what's going on. What is your plan? What's your long-term plan? And be honest when you join. If you're going to join, be honest. If you have a health condition or a mental health condition, acknowledge it. It's fine, but it's better to know instead of getting in trouble because you didn't say something before.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are often forgotten when joining the military. Don't lie. It's like, oh yeah, I don't have asthma. Oh no, I didn't have my appendix in. No, shit.
Okay, best USO story.
Oh.
Can you tell me that story?
Yeah. So you know this story, right? But I'll tell you.
I want the people to hear your story. Yeah.
The people want to hear it. So my brother is the biggest Kelly Clarkson fan. We both are, but he always used to say that she'd be his future ex-wife, and so she did. It was hysterical. And so Behind These Hazel Eyes had just come out, and she was on tour, and she decided that she was going to join the USO tour, and she was visiting all these different places, and she was going to be south of where I was. She was going to be at Camp Arifjan singing the national anthem, which I didn't know until afterward. And they come through that day. It was her. It wasn't just her. It was her, and then some sports celebrity. I really don't remember who the sports celebrities were. They weren't names that I had known. My friends who were big into sports knew them, but I'm not a big sports person. So, and I met Kelly Clarkson. I got to hug Kelly Clarkson. And so I stood in line. I was nervous. I brought my CD with me, so I had her sign my CD. Yes, I still have it. And we were only allowed to have one thing autographed. And I looked at her and I said, I really hate to ask you this because I realized that we're not supposed to. I said, but my brother's north, my brother's in Iraq, and he is your biggest fan. And if I tell him that I met you and I didn't get your autograph for him, and she stops and she goes, oh my God. She goes, she says, you're here and your brother's. I said, yeah, my brother's in Iraq. And she goes, would you please tell him that I hope he stays safe?
Oh.
And I hadn't heard from Bill in a couple of days because the phones would go in and out where he was. And I started to cry. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, I really don't know if I'm okay. I said, but I think everything's going to be fine. And so I called him that night. And I said, you're never going to believe who I met today. He goes, who did you meet today? I said, I got Kelly Clarkson. And I got a hug. He goes, what?
I hate you.
Said, yeah, I got Kelly Clarkson. And he hung up on me. And I had to call him back. I'm like, you can't be thankful in Iraq. He goes, I can do whatever I want. How do you do that? So she still got it somewhere, I'm sure. It's just a piece of paper, but yeah, and I have my copy Behind These Hazel Eyes with
you guys, did you guys get together for one Christmas in Kuwait?
Yeah, so when we left, we deployed to theater in December of 2004. It was December 14th. And so we got there. So we left the 14th. We flew up the 14th. We landed in Kuwait on the 15th. He was at, where was he? I think he was at Camp Buring, and I was at Camp Doha, which is Doha's right there anyway. And his commander and my commander were new commanders. His commander was great. Oh my God, she was the best lady I ever knew. And there were 3 sets of siblings between our units, and our units had deployed parallel to each other, one to Iraq, one to Kuwait. He was a medical specialist, and I was administration. And so they actually had my friend's sister and my brother come down, and then we had a set of twins who were both in Bill's unit, and they all came down, and so we were staying there on Christmas. And up until this last Christmas, just recently, actually I think 2 years ago, we'd never missed a Christmas together.
Oh, that's nice.
And, yeah, so I think of the 35 Christmases we've had, it'll be 35. So 34 Christmases we've had together, 32 of them we've been together at some point on that day.
Even with your deployment, yeah.
Even with the deployment, yeah. My mother was so mad. She was like, that's the only one I missed from you. I'm like, yeah, we're together. So we called. It was like midnight where we were. But it was earlier, I guess, because it was back.
Yeah.
We were 8 hours ahead. So.
Did she know that you were going to get to see each other? Or was it a surprise?
I knew he was coming down. I don't know if we talked to my mom at that point, because it was very difficult back then to call, because you had to use calling cards for everything. It wasn't like nowadays where you pick up your phone and go. It was 2004. Like, I had a phone before 2004, but I was still counting minutes.
I remember.
And I had, like, you paid $7 for 3 minutes after 7. Yeah, I had that. But when we went overseas, it was international calling and everything. And now it's like, you can buy an international plan and it costs you $150 for the month. I'm like, I would have loved that back then. $150 for a month. I could have called anybody anytime I wanted. So we had a call with that. I don't think we called her to tell her that we were going to be together. I think we just called her that night.
That's so fun.
And,
yeah.
Well, we're kind of cruel like that. We do those things just to kind of be spiteful. No, sorry, Jen. That was fun.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me about your time in the service.
It was a lot of fun. I didn't think of a lot of these things or kind of put them into perspective. So being asked these questions is not something I think of because I don't think of myself as being an example. So I thank you for pointing that lens at me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my honor. Thank you for your service. Almost your full 20 years coming up.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So end of the month is 20, so in December it'll be 20 to retire.
Guys, we're getting old. That's all.
No, you're getting old. I'm getting younger.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'll take it.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Thank you, Lenny, so much for chatting with me today. Our next guest is Sergeant Daniel Moga, who served in the United States Marine Corps from 2003 to 2010 in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's Amy. How are you? What life lessons did you learn from your experience in the service?
There's actually a lot of things I learned. So after I got your email, I wrote some things down because I didn't want to ramble on forever. But so some of the things that I learned was I love humor. I've always loved it. And right before leaving for the Marines, my friends were like, you're not going to be this funny person anymore. You're going to go there and they're just going to tear it all from you. You're just going to be a serious person all the time. And that's what I thought too. But what they teach you is, like, when you should be funny. Like, there should always be humor, but if we need to get something done, put that humor off to the side and get what you need to get accomplished.
Good. I'm glad you got to keep that element of yourself, even in the Marines.
Yeah. In the beginning, it was a little tough. People were like, you can't be funny. You have to be serious all the time. And I would always tell them, like, listen, you're not going to make it through this training if you're just serious all the time. It's just going to break you. And you just need to take it with a grain of salt and just enjoy yourself when you can, when they're not looking. And when they're looking, serious. So, and as long as you get the job accomplished, mission's number one. So,
did you ever get in trouble for your sense of humor in the Marines?
No, I don't think so. In boot camp, I never got in trouble. In the Marines, I was told, I remember one of these counselings we had, and they were like, I really like your humor, it's great, but we need to dial it back a little bit. And I go, okay. And then I go from there, but I've never gotten in trouble for my humor. I think I was a little bit of freshness to their craziness. So.
Okay, so other lessons that you learned from your time in service?
Something, I have a bunch of things, but so never quitting. I guess before it was, I don't think I can get that done. And then you join the military service, or the Marines in my case, and it's, I can definitely get that done. Even though in the back of your mind, you're like, this is going to be kind of impossible. But you just went for it. And when you completed it, you were so ecstatic, so happy about it. I mean, I applied that for when I was going to get my master's. And, people, they think of me, you're a Marine, you're not very smart, how are you going to go get your master's? And I'm like, it's going to be tough, but I think I can do it. And I was able to just apply that life lesson of just never quitting and just pushing myself to complete it. And I finished it in a year and a semester. So
wow,
I just squished it all together and I got it done. And that's like the next thing is just, if I have to finish something, I'm just going to go for it. And there's like no procrastination anymore. I just get it done.
Congrats on your master's.
Thank you. That was a very stressful year and a month, but it was over. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid. It's a lot better. I'm looking at a PhD soon, but I have 2 kids, so I want them to be in high school, college maybe. I have plenty of time, and then I'll probably go into it, because it does take a lot out of you, a PhD.
How's that going? Do you like working for the VA?
Yeah, it's nice. I've been there for well, right after college, I started there. So I'd say about 10 years. I guess 2 of those years, or 3 of those years, I was a contractor, and then for one of the years, I left to go work for the Department of Justice as a corrections officer. So it's just, I've been with the VA for a very long time. It's been nice.
So the Department of Corrections, was that tough? That sounds tough.
I mean, I don't know if I didn't think it was tough, because I walked in there with the idea of these are just people and they got caught doing something bad and they're here.
Right.
And it depends on how long they're going to be there. Because I was at the one in Devens. It was also like a hospital. So some of them were mentally ill, others were injured, and then it ranged from minimum to all the way to maximum security. So it depended on where you were that day. But as long as you didn't treat them as if they were just criminals all the time, I mean, they knew they were there for a reason. Everything was fine. I never had any problems. Obviously, I mean, I'm only like 5'9". Yeah, I was in the Marines, but these people average like 2 and like 250 pounds, but nobody was looking for anything bad. I mean, everything was good. I liked it. I guess one of the things that, I don't know if my wife likes it, but confidence is something that I got from the Marines. I think I'm the best. Sometimes she's like, oh, you just so just overly confident. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't put other people down. I just say that I'm confident and I believe in myself a lot. And I say I'm the greatest. And I used to yell that all the time when we were in Iraq. I used to just yell it and be like, I'm the greatest. And then people would be like, shut up. And, I was like, whatever. But it wasn't a way of just saying, you're horrible. It's just, I believed in myself and that's what I wanted. So,
what year
a lot of people don't like it.
What year were you in Iraq?
I was there 2009 and the beginning of 2010.
Oh, okay. Because
2010.
I had 2.
Yeah, I was supposed to go earlier, but I tore a ligament in my ankle.
Ooh. Yeah, I had 2 cousins and 3 buddies over there at the same time. So every time I was walking in Boston, in college, I was walking to the post office. I'd have 5 care packages to send out. They knew me pretty well. Okay, anything else that you'd like to share?
I guess another thing, because I was brainstorming with my wife, and I was like, I wonder what other things. I mean, is there anything bad or good? And she's like, well, you're very attentive. She said you pay attention to more than one thing at a time. So if we're watching a movie, you could be on the phone and also listening to music, and you could be paying attention to all 3 things. And I feel like that I definitely learned that in the military, because I didn't have that before. I mean, I could barely read a book and listen to somebody talk before, but it helped me just prioritize the noises and the sounds and everything. All your senses are just a lot more heightened, and you're just paying attention. I pay attention to my surroundings all the time. She said there was one time when we went to Guatemala, and I was like, oh, that guy over there, he's got 4 bodyguards, and they're all spread out across the entire mall. She's like, how did you even notice that? And I'm like, well, first of all, his suit is way too nice. I'm like, there's just people standing around him, it's 20 feet away each person, but I mean, I guess if you're in the military, you understand people where they need to be positioned and stuff like that. So I'm a lot more attentive. Even my friends are too. I'm very good at working under stressful conditions. At work, I mean, as you know, this whole COVID-19, I work in a hospital, and people are just very stressed out, and everyone's kind of, I don't know, they're on the edge.
Burned out.
Everything. And yeah, pretty much. It's definitely there. And, I'm always there, and I'm telling them, it's going to be better, everything's going to be fine. And I just work very well under those stressful conditions. I like them. I kind of thrive from them. I always need to be doing something. I don't know why, but it's conditions of just always doing something that makes me feel better. Like right now, I also, after work, 2 days a week, not now, but in the spring semester, I was teaching classes too. And it's just, people are like, don't you get tired? And I go, I do, but it's just so good. Like, it feels good to me. Like, work is my drug, and I like it. Like, I work after work, and I don't get paid for it. Like, I just keep going. And it feels good to know that I've accomplished something. It gets a little bit too much sometimes, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to just bring it back and just do less work this week. Some other things that my wife said was bad. I don't have any patience, not for like getting things done. If I, like as a teacher, you have to have patience, and that's fine. I do all the time. People at work are like, well, how are you a teacher? You're not like patient with any of us. And I'm like, yeah, but you got hired for this position knowing that you needed to know this job. It's up to you to keep working, to know this information. These people are going to school to learn this information. It's a completely different thing. So for me to teach somebody, I'm perfectly fine. I sit there, my girls are home, and if I'm working from home, I can teach them. And I have patience because I know they don't know. For somebody to get paid as much as whatever they do for being an IT person, I'm like, okay, you need to know this. Like, I can't just do everything for you, and that's why I guess there's no patience for me when it comes to that. Yeah, and then if I find out that, maybe they just didn't understand it, then I'm like, okay, I thought you were just not wanting to understand it. But when I have to repeat myself 5 times over a week, I'm like, okay, now you should probably be writing this down. Instead of me saying it so many times on how to fix something. The other thing I learned, which I like a lot, is learning from other people or learning from experiences. Whenever I need to get something done, in my mind as a leader, I'm like, okay, we need to get this done. But then at the same time, I go, but does anybody have any suggestions on how we could do it better? Because I don't think my way is always the best way. Maybe they might come up with something else. And I love that brainstorming aspect, and that's what we always did. Not specifically in the Marines. I mean, in the Marines, they were like, get this done, and then do it this way. I kind of learned, like, we're not going to be able to complete everything in the world by just saying, hey, get this done, do it this way. We need to kind of think outside the box, and that's what I learned from them too. It's like, just stop telling people do this without understanding the full aspect of it. I guess the last thing, which is a lot of my coworkers or people that work for me, is I get the leadership. I'm not management, I'm more leadership. I'm supervisor for 10 people in an IT department, and if I want something done, I tell them, all right, I need this done, do you need help? Because I'll be there for you, and I go with them and I help them, and if I've done it before, I can tell them, okay, let's go do this together, and I can show you how to do it. And they like that. They like the whole aspect of that, and they say that I'm more of a leader than I am a manager, and that's one of the things that I learned.
Did you have a person in the military that was a leader type role model for you?
No, not really. The problem with when I went in was I feel like a lot of people retired, and there was just a group of us that went in. And when I first joined the Marines, I was with somebody, and the military, the Marines, they put you in a class full of 80 people. You don't know where these people are from. They're from all over the United States. And then you get sent to a school. In that school, I met somebody, and it happened to be that he was getting stationed at the same place that I was. And then from there, we kind of like grew up learning off of each other through the Marines. We never had, I guess, like a leader that was there for a while. They moved up so fast because we were engineering.
Okay.
So it was like constant in and out. It wasn't somebody's there and they're there to stay for a while. You did 4-year shifts and you moved away. So I really didn't have anybody like that. I just learned from each person. I took everyone's like good parts and I just put them all into my own.
You're my only Marine that I'm talking to tonight. Anything you would say to a young recruit thinking about joining the Marines?
Don't know what you're getting into because it'll be a lot easier. I didn't know what I was getting into, I mean, I walked into a mall with my mom, who was 17. I said, I want to join the military. And then you walk in, and they have different branches. I was like, oh, the Marines. I heard they're the hardest. I don't know anything. My mom's from a different country. So it's like, she knew nothing. She was forced to join the military in Romania. And so she knew nothing. And she goes, all right, whatever. And then joining it made it so much more easier for me because I wasn't stressed out about the fact that they were the best. Everyone's like, oh, you were in the Marines? And I'm like, yeah. So it's a lot better if you don't do your research and just go in there. Because if I saw movies about what boot camp was about, I would have been like, no, I'm good. I'm going to the Air Force or something. Because they got it good. Sometimes I go, oh, I wish I joined the Air Force, but then the Marines.
That's a great piece of advice. Some of the other ones have been more serious. I like yours the best.
Oh yeah, you can't be serious. I mean, you have to be serious when it comes to it. But go in there to get something done and just enjoy it, because you will enjoy it. You'll be mad sometimes. You're like, why did I do this? And then you'll have that one moment where you realize why you did it, and it's gonna be great. Well, you'll have more than one, but it'll off balance, and you'll be very happy that you did it.
I'm happy for you that you get those moments. I think pushing yourself to, over the limit. Will I survive this? Is something everyone needs to go through and hopefully actually survive. And then when you are successful at those like adventures or misadventures, it makes life a little bit sweeter. So anyway, I'm proud of you, and I wanted to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking with me tonight about your time in the service.
All right.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a good night. Our final guest today is Staff Sergeant Thomas Gordon, who enlisted in the Massachusetts Army National Guard in 2001. Staff Sergeant Gordon has been awarded the Army Commendation Medal for his service, which included a deployment to Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Thank you for speaking with me today, Tom. What life lessons did you learn from your time in the service? Can you tell us a little about what your role was in the service, and then work on that question with us?
Okay, so my role in the Army during my deployment, it was 2005, so very early on, and I was a signaling support systems specialist, which means that I would fix computers and radios in a desert environment where there's lots of dust. It was terrible.
I can imagine.
I kind of discovered lessons as I grew up about deployment. So, like, during the experience, I remembered a lot of it, and I actually wrote a ton of letters and correspondence to, like, Jolene and Caroline and Lindsay when I was deployed. So it's definitely worked as a thing that I can go back and actually, like, read. And it was funny because Caroline and I were deployed at the same base, and we would still write letters to each other. I'd say that, like, a lot of the lessons I've learned that I've drawn on, like, later in life, the biggest one being is that I have this very stark perspective of, like, when things are really bad, which kind of stops me from panicking when things are, like, a little bad. Where, like, car breaks down, late for work, having, like, the worst day ever, and generally my deployment kind of works as a stand-back point to be like, but remember when someone shot a rocket at you? That day was way worse. Like,
I remember you telling me about that
so it
story.
kind of helps me, like, detach and kind of untangle myself from the stress of the moment.
That's super helpful as a caliber to increase your own mental health, your mental bandwidth on the daily basis, of course.
That's one of the big lessons that kind of gets drawn on a lot whenever I'm having, like, really bad normal days, is I realize that there are a lot worse days that had occurred. And then another, like, lesson that I kind of drew on upon was that, like, a lot of those early days in 2005, there was a lot of interaction between the Iraqi civilian population and U.S. forces, because we were still trying to do a build-up phase after the initial shock and awe movements. And I refuse to this day to kind of, like, complain about my white, sheltered, lower middle class life. Just refused, completely disinterested, especially after seeing civilian populations try to make a living in the midst of some pretty violent stuff. I just kind of don't engage in that kind of complaining, I guess, anymore, which is funny because I live in New England and what we do best is complain. But again,
I only laugh because I'm from there. I only laugh because I'm from there.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we complain about everything here, comically, but we do.
Yes.
And yeah, I just tend to kind of keep a pretty global perspective on like how my day is going and what I allow to make me feel sad or helpless. That list is very, very, very tiny, just because I have that perspective that I learned while deployed.
Is there anything that you would share with a recruit or somebody that's thinking about joining one of the armed forces?
What would I tell new recruits? Well, I'm still in the Army, so I still meet a lot of young soldiers coming in. One of the blessings, I think, of the U.S. Army is that it is a very diverse environment. And so one of the things that everyone who joins the Army kind of has this mental image of what it's like to be a soldier, what soldiers look like, how soldiers like act, they're like hard with like muscles and always serious. And what ends up happening is that young recruits will try really hard to kind of fit in that mold that they think they're expected to because of how Army personnel are portrayed in movies and whatnot. And in reality, what the Army really wants is for you to be professional, good at your job, and good at what it asks you to do. And all of that, like, hard machismo stuff is not really necessary. And so no matter who you are in this country, you find your group in the U.S. Army because it's pretty diverse. Like, you will find your Dungeons and Dragons group in the U.S. Army. You will find your video game nerds in the U.S. Army. Like, you will find the sports fans, the gearheads, like they're all here somewhere, and to not really worry about putting on this mask of what you think a soldier should act like, and instead just kind of be yourself, and you'll find your people. It's just like high school.
That's a great piece of advice. I hadn't even thought of that you would go into it, with all of the preconceived notions about what you see on TV and these TV shows and movies, and then take that into there and think, I have to be the best at the basic training, program.
Yeah, and it is a competitive environment, but when you actually reach your native units, the competitiveness is still there, but it's not at the sacrifice of, asking people to not be themselves or to mute their personality. And you can kind of see, like, in individuals that are kind of really not being their genuine selves, they are spending all this brain power to kind of filter in who they are through who they think they should be into action. And that extra step really kind of slows down the processing power because you're trying to, like, emulate this behavior that isn't really native. And so you can kind of see that delay and hesitation in people that are more concerned about how they're perceived than actually, like, performing well.
Is there anything else you would like to share with the people?
Vote. It's super important.
Yes.
Yes, it's just, find those politicians that represent you as an American. And if you're voting genuinely and supporting and being civilly active and engaged, you're doing everyone who puts on this uniform a service, because we're ensured that our leaders who are in control of our lives and our well-being are actually doing what the people want us to do. and not fulfilling their own agendas or political points, because we would have a engaged and intelligent voting base.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your service. Thank you for speaking with me today. Thanks again.
You too.
Thank you for joining me today for the Intelligent Minds podcast with Amy Nadeau. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe for future episodes or feel free to leave a review or comments below. Have a great day.